Hello everybody, Septa here, and in today's Platinum Trophy video, I'm going to be fully completing and platinuming Until Dawn. I really looked forward to platinuming this game for quite a while. If you don't know about Until Dawn, it's a Telltale-like horror game that came out in 2015. I don't spoil too much of the story, so I very much recommend playing through it on your own. We start off the game with a pretty nice theme here. Basically, the main theme of the game is about the butterfly effect and how one decision can have a lasting, really lasting effect. We start the game off at the Washington family's cabin. Basically, the Washington family consists of Beth, Hannah, and Josh Washington. Hannah and Beth are the younger twin sisters of Josh, and basically, on this fateful night that takes place 1 year before the main game, they're just having a party as most college kids do, and they play a prank on Hannah by convincing her that her crush Mike actually likes her. Now, this prank goes horribly wrong, and she gets embarrassed and runs off, as you can see here. Now, these mountains that they're up in are the Blackwood Mountains, and it's honestly really creepy. You could see Beth here, who is Hannah's younger twin, and basically this is who we play as in the quick little prologue. She's out looking for Beth in the freezing cold wilderness. Once they reunite, things aren't any better as they are actively running away from a man that they saw. They get stopped at a cliff and decide that, well, Hannah doesn't really decide, but as they're getting chased, she fumbles the bag and slips off the cliff. Now, they do, grab on, but the man looked really scary, so I just kind of let go and, said, we ball, because I wasn't going to risk it, and we both got slimed. I am noticing now that the audio is a little delayed, so my apologies for this. After this, we get to a kind of intermission point of the game that happens in between each chapter. I won't really talk about it as it's just advising the player on decisions, but basically this is Dr. Hill, and he is the therapist to a anonymous character that is later revealed to be Josh, who is right here inviting everyone the year after the incident to come up to the party. So here's where the real game starts. We are playing as Sam, one of the main characters, heading up to Blackwood Mountain. Essentially, the beginning of the game starts out more peaceful, and we kind of just meet the characters, get a sense of who they have a crush on, and what their personality traits are. Sam was one of the biggest main characters, but Chris, as you can see here, was by far one of my favorites. I liked him and the other character, Mike. Jess was my least favorite. Well, my second least favorite. She was just often she was so annoying. And then we get to one of the worst characters that I've ever met in a video game, Emily. Oh my god, she was so annoying throughout the game. Her boyfriend, Matt, was honestly pretty chill. I felt really bad for him that he had to put up with her. Our first task of the game happens when Chris meets up with Josh for the first time. Basically, since they haven't been up to the cabin in about a year, they end up having to repair the furnace in the basement as it's still really chilly. This kind of sets the scene for how most of the game will play, as it's very dark and oftentimes it's only lit by a single candle or lighter. After everyone meets up, there's immediate drama, and Mike and Jess are kicked out to go to one of the other cabins so that they can be alone and away from the rest of the main group. This causes a lot of problems, but back in the main cabin, Josh, Ashley, and Chris all play with an Ouija board to see if they can talk to Hannah, because basically Josh wants to talk to his dead sisters with his friends. While Mike and Jess are in the other cabin, they find that someone seems to be following them or stalking the cabin. So Jess thinks it's a good idea to go outside and start to yell at whoever it was. And in retaliation of what she did, she was nicely asked to stop talking as, whoever, was trying to find them found it quite rude. But this leads to us not seeing a character for a very long time. Back with Chris and Ashley, he can't find Ashley, as you can hear by the audio, and it turns out that there is a whole other threat other than whatever got Jessica. Basically, inside of the cabin, there's a psycho kind of murderer dude, and he knocks out Ashley and Chris, and just is overall a very creepy character. I really like the inclusion of the Psycho just to add to the mystery of whatever had the red vision that stalked the twins and that stalked Mike. After Mike looks for Jess, he sees a man going up a hill into a building later known as the sanatorium. This is where he takes refuge for a lot of time. Also, Chris wasn't abducted, so he looks for Ashley and finds him and Josh set up in a choice, like a Saw type thing, where he has to choose which one dies and which one lives. Now, for a trophy, I do have to pick to save Ashley, as I can't make her mad. And, well, also, this first playthrough, I have to keep everyone alive, but we do have to kill one person, so our first death happens when we kill Josh. His death's really brutal, so I don't show it, but now everyone's freaking out. However, things are arguably going worse for Mike in the sanatorium, as he gets his finger stuck in a bear trap, and I decided that the best course of action would be to amputate his fingers to get him out, which he does, which, honestly, I love how he hypes himself up to cut his fingers off. This part of the game hurt me. Oh, it hurt so bad. But in the sanatorium, we find out that they were experimenting on people, like children and psychos, as it was like a mental facility. You could find just crazy stuff in here, like all these skulls and these corpses. This one has a rat in the mouth, but like, it was so creepy. And I do find a dog bone, which is useful for a later trophy. But overall, the sanatorium was one of my favorite areas in the game, as it was just so like cool and dark and creepy. Back with Sam, she was in the bath and was being creeped on by the Psycho, but she was alerted of what's happening, so she's out looking for whoever he is. And here is actually one of the biggest mistakes that I made throughout this playthrough. So I do end up getting attacked by the Psycho, where I made a good choice, which instead of running away, I threw the vase at the Psycho, which does grant me a trophy later on, because none of the trophies pop right once you do them. But my mistake comes after this, when while I'm hiding from the Psycho, I end up moving during one of these stupid hiding parts where you basically have to hold your controller completely still or else you get caught. There were so many of those in this game, and they were so stressful to do, but we end up getting caught, and this doesn't have any like storyline repercussions, but it locks us out of some of the collectibles, because yes, this game has collectibles, but I'll mention those later. With this being the end of the chapter, we get the Psycho Path trophy for attacking the Psycho with a weapon, and the Scream 2 trophy for cutting off Mike's fingers in the bear trap. Those trophies were very easy, but they'll come after each chapter. Back with Emily and Matt, they went out to find a ranger tower where they actually managed to contact the rangers and send out a distress call, but unfortunately the rangers cannot get there until dawn. Someone sabotaged the ranger post by basically cutting one of the wires that was holding it up, so they actually fall. Now after the tower falls, we can make some choices here as Matt, where actually if you save Emily, if you choose to save Emily twice in a row, you'll die. So by choosing to jump to safety, we can save both of their lives, whereas before Matt would die. But even though Emily took that fall, we'll be right back with her momentarily, because she does somehow survive this. Back with Chris and Ashley, they're exploring the basement of the house in search of the Psycho that kept them in containment. Basically, they're just looking around, and they do find something very interesting. They find a dummy, like, corpse with Sam's clothes on them, which is a very interesting clue. However, the Psycho finds them again, which arguably gives them a equal punishment to what they had before. This is our other chance to get the Psycho Path trophy by instead having Ashley attack the Psycho, but she gets knocked out. For Saw Trap number 2, Chris and Ashley must play a game of Russian roulette. Now this isn't the same as normal Russian roulette, as it's all down to Chris. He has a loaded gun, and he has to choose between him or Ashley. Now, to make Chris the good person that he automatically is, and, of course, the good person that I made him be, I decide that the best course of action, no matter Ashley's pleads, is to shoot myself so that she survives, because it's very useful later in the game to keep her alive. So I do blow my brains out, which is unfortunate. However, I'm going to leave a little spoiler here. The guns, it's a blank. The bullets are blanks. Mike makes it back to the house and is reunited with Sam as he helps her escape from where the psycho left her staying. Cut back to Emily. She's dangling, which is how she ended up surviving. She is in the caves, which is where the twin sisters actually fell down the cliff. So basically, her parts are very boring. It's just traveling through caves with no light, with lots of collectibles to get. Not collecting all of them definitely bit me in the butt later. But she finds another man who you may have seen in the backgrounds of some scenes, and this is also the dude that was with the sisters on the cliff. He's later revealed to be nice, but she's really scared of him right now since he has a flamethrower. She runs from him, but eventually he saves her life by pushing her down a little hill, because if he didn't, she'd be killed by those monsters that you've been seeing. I'll talk more about those in a little bit, because more importantly, most of the gang is back together, and it is revealed that the psycho is actually Josh, playing a prank on all of his friends by inviting them up there and pretending to be a psycho killer to get revenge for his sister's death. Chris and Mike locked Josh up in the same shed that Josh made Chris decide between his and Ashley's life. He basically did this to get revenge on Chris and to traumatize him. However, up in this next clip, we see that Emily and the flamethrower guy are facing more monsters, which are later revealed to be cannibalistic Wendigos, which are honestly a very cool enemy. But Emily gets pushed down and has to escape the monsters. She's up on the surface, making her way back to the cabin, but she actually gets attacked. There's nothing you can do to avoid this, but she does get attacked by a Wendigo right here and gets bit. That is a very crucial part to the story. Now here, the flamethrower guy breaks back into the cabin to actually help the survivors by basically telling them how to beat and kill the Wendigos. Now that the group is aware of their imminent danger, they go to check on Josh, but he's nowhere to be found, which means the worst for him. But as we are escaping the cabin, more Wendigos are coming. Now, unfortunately for the flamethrower guy, he was probably one of the best people in the group. He does get slimed by the Wendigo for our first actual death, which he didn't deserve. Next, we get some, in my opinion, super satisfying gameplay where we just get to shoot Wendigos as Chris runs to the main lodge. Since we did decide to kill Josh and ourselves, Ashley lets us in with no hesitation, where she could have easily killed us by locking us outside with the Wendigos. But most of the gang is back together. Everyone except Josh, Jess, and Matt are in the basement, where they basically talk about the Wendigo stuff. But first off, they have a issue where they figure out that Emily has a Wendigo bite. Now, they hadn't read the books that were left by the flamethrower guy, so we had the option to kill Emily. But, of course, for the trophy of keeping all the main characters alive, I do not shoot her. Funnily enough, right after this, we do discover in books that Wendigo bites do not turn people into Wendigos. It's only cannibalism, but we get the Let Em In trophy for allowing Emily to live. And we also get to progress on in the story. Now, Mike, back inside of the sanatorium, gets that bone that I mentioned earlier, and he befriends a dog, which is used for another later trophy. The dog is useful, as honestly the sanatorium is one of the most stressful areas in the game, as there's just a high amount of Wendigos. But Mike's a freaking badass, so he ends up blowing the whole building up, and of course he survives, because he's Mike, and he's got quite a bit of plot armor. He's definitely my favorite character. He does get saved from a Wendigo by Sam. Basically, they, after this, kind of reconnect. They're the two best survivors, in my opinion, as no matter what, they survive to the end. Basically, now that those two are together, we finish the chapter and get the Skillful Wolfman trophy for just keeping the wolf alive. Now that they're here together, they end up finding Josh, where you get a crucial moment where he can actually be killed if you don't find the right collectibles. Now, because we did find the right collectibles, we figure out that this Wendigo right here is actually Hannah. So she ended up breaking her legs on the fall and had to resort to cannibalism and eat Beth, which is kind of really dark, and it turned her into a Wendigo. Finally back with Matt and Jess. Matt kind of saves Jess as they both fell down into the mines, but this part is very tricky as you have to get all the stealth perfectly to keep them both alive. But eventually they do make it out safe and make it back to the main lodge, where things arguably aren't that much better, because there are Wendigos all over the lodge, and this is so stressful. I mean, I died so many times at this part, but Mike clutches up and breaks a light bulb, allowing a gas leak to be kind of created so that they can create a spark. Now, I saved Mike here, which is a very crucial decision, as there was a missable trophy if I chose to run to the switch. I, of course, survived because I'm a gamer, but, of course, with the added stress of Wendigos and my controller constantly vibrating, it makes this part very difficult. And that's actually the spot where I died most of the times. So, if you haven't noticed in the background, there have been people that run away from where we are, and basically, like, they're running out of the cabin. Now, Sam runs out, and we kill the Wendigos by blowing up the cabin. This honestly makes sense because the only way you can actually kill the Wendigos is with fire or explosions. So this does kill the Wendigos, which finally lets Hannah get the rest. So, with this, all of our characters have survived. With that, we then get the 4 Daughters of Darkness trophy for all the girls surviving, the Don't Scare Jessica to Death for her surviving, the Quicker Man trophy for all the boys surviving, and the They All Live trophy for everyone surviving. Now, I'm going to kind of go through this quick. This is where Matt gets slimed. Basically, if you choose to save Emily twice in a row, he dies. So kind of to talk quickly about the rest of the platinum, I'm going to show the deaths and all the rest of the trophies, as it's just collectibles that I found across the way, and basically the opposite ending where everyone dies. So, when Matt goes to save Emily the second time, the tower falls, and he falls onto a ledge which has a Wendigo. He doesn't know this, but it scares him, and he kind of kills himself by running into a meat hook, which isn't good. Now, this next trophy is secured by Chris deciding to shoot Ashley, which he says that she says that she wants to die, but if you do this and get the Fatal Grudge trophy, it later comes back to haunt Chris, as he gets killed because Ashley refuses to let him in, and he gets unfortunately beheaded. Now time for Emily, one of the most satisfying and, in my opinion, best deaths of the entire game, because I hated Emily from the start, as I've expressed. The audio is still a bit laggy here, but it doesn't take away from how satisfying it is to kill Emily. She was so annoying the whole game, so without any hesitation, I blew her brains all over the wall. Now it's trophy time at the end of the chapter once again, where we get Ashley snaps for Ashley killing Chris, and the exorcism of Emily for Mike shooting Emily. 2 of the best trophies in the game. In karma of what happens to Chris, Ashley decides to open this trapdoor to try to be a nice person, and gets jump scared, so jump scare warning. There's a Wendigo in the thing, and it just insta-kills her. It twists her head off, which I'm not going to show because all the deaths in this game are so gruesome. With Sam and Mike reuniting, we get to see the story when they're the only ones that are actually alive. Basically, here we do get the trophy, You Let the Wrong One In, for killing Ashley. So far, it's just them and Jess. I don't have any footage of Jess dying, but back in the cabin, I just have to quickly, kill Sam, which just failing a check does this, which doesn't reset the game per se, but did mess up my first run, which is why I had to reset so many times. Now, with Mike, nothing left to do, and being the Chad that he is, he just, he blows the house up with himself in it, sacrificing himself to avenge his and all of his friends' deaths by killing off the Wendigos. One of the best endings in a story game. Now we get this is the end for nobody surviving until dawn, which is our final wrap-up phase. So now we have the totems, which show various things throughout the game, like which characters die and potential dangers. Also, like, specific decisions that have value, but we get the Knight of the Totem Hunter for collecting all of them. The next set of collectibles are about the twins. These were a pain to get, but we get the Tale of Two Sisters trophy for getting them. They were basically just information about the twins before they died. Now for the Mystery Man collectibles, these were just revealing who Josh was. We get the You Open Their Eyes trophy for getting all of them. These basically reveal that Josh is the psycho before the game actually reveals it. The last set of collectibles were the 1952 collectibles, which were the last ones that I ended up getting. These were very annoying. Now, we do end up getting the Faithful Descent trophy, but I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the play. I'm sorry, Mike. It's for the platinum, Mike. I'm sorry. Oh, Mike. Oh, and Ashley. I'm fine with Emily, though. I hated Emily. Okay, at least Chris made it. But I've seen all these people die like 40 times. Yes, instant inferno. Sam immediately flicked the switch to set the lodge ablaze, which I did replay chapter 10 a whole nother time just to get that. And a symphony of horror trophies. You collected all gold, silver, and bronze trophies in Until Dawn. This game was so good. I actually loved it. So I would like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.